How do I define my role? My God, that's a difficult one. Well, not a difficult one. I think an MP wears multiple caps, though, a number of caps. But at the end of the day, there are two things that are important. One is to ensure that issues regarding Klang are taken care of, meaning that as a response to issues raised by local people, and at the same time to take up issues, national issues at Parliament. So this balance has to be a fine balance between both, meaning issues that are local, issues that are Klang centered, if you want, and the other is national issues that have significance for Klang as well as for the country as a whole. So this balance is really an important one. And sometimes to have that balance between 50-50% for each of them is quite difficult, because sometimes one dominates and not the other, and so on and so forth. But sometimes to keep the balance is really important. One focusing on local issues and the other focusing on national issues. So two sets of issues.
So what are the challenges that you are facing as an MP for Klang?
Well, the challenges are many. But I think the most important challenge would be to solve problems of people, though, at the local level. So till today, you will have people with problems with their drain, their roads, and so on and so forth. They come to you, and you cannot tell them, hey, that's not my work. They will say, hey, I ordered for you, so do something for me, though. So I think you have to respond to those issues. And you have to get the local councils, including the local councillors, in order to help you to solve some of these issues. And then at the same time, you have national issues. And some of the issues, national issues, that I want to focus on at this time, in this coming sitting of Parliament, would be on the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement that Malaysia will be signing with the United States and 14 other countries, as well as the European Union Malaysia Free Trade Agreement. That will be my big focus. And in that context, I'll focus on two sets of issues. One on the investment chapter of the free trade agreement that of both this Trans-Pacific Partnership, as well as Malaysia European Union, and the right to affordable medicine, because medicine will be compromised now. The price of medicine will go up because it is linked to what you call intellectual property rights, and therefore the price of medicine will be very costly, and this means a lot of people will not be able to afford medicine. This will become a problem.
Okay, how will you keep up to the promises made to your constituents during the election campaign?
Okay, no easy questions. I think we have to lay out a plan. And the plan is, there are a couple of issues. One is on crime. The other is on transportation, affordable, efficient transportation. And the third is on keeping Klang clean, though. So these are the three things. And I can assure you, this is a work in progress that will go on for a period of time. It's not going to be something, it's not going to be a walk in the park, because this requires the work, a change in attitude of people. It requires enforcement authorities doing their work as they should, and it also requires change in policies as well. See, for example, transportation is a problem for Klang. The link between KL and Klang. We only have the MRT that comes to Klang, and therefore people are very much dependent on private transportation. That means by buses and so on. So I'm currently planning or thinking through about how to start talking with Prasarana, which is now linking up to Subang Jaya, up to maybe Subang Jaya, Kelana Jaya, but not bringing the linkage or the network to Klang. So how do they can come to Klang? So Klang people will have available, affordable, and efficient transportation, though. That's one. Number two, to look at transportation within Klang itself. And the whole point is to reduce the use of private transportation, though, but more public transportation. Now, this is very important given climate change and the need to reduce um, the use of oil, the need to reduce carbon, actually, that's one, CO2.
And how about crime? How do you wish to combat crime?
Now, crime again is it's something that you have to, a whole variety of things has to take place at the same time. One, public information and public awareness. Number two, working together with the police. Number three, to develop or create a vigilant society, which involves all stakeholders. So, for example, one cannot say that crime is just an issue for the police. It is a shared responsibility that involves the police, the community, the Rukun Tetangga, resident associations, NGOs, and so on and so forth. If we privatize crime just with the police, then we will not be in a safe environment, though. But that also means now the police too have to make changes. We need more policemen on the streets, and that's something that we have to put pressure in Parliament, though, where Parliament must impress upon the minister that at this time there are more people in the offices as opposed to being outside protecting people on the streets, though. So I think there's a need for the change in ratio. There are a lot of people in special branch right now, a lot of people in the desk jobs who can be mobilized or remobilized to crime prevention in the streets. I think this is quite important, I think.
Would you support Freedom of Information Act? Why or why not?
No, I think one of the issues that I fought very hard in the last elections was the right to freedom of information. Freedom of information is a right. When a society has access to information, when society has access to all kinds of information, they can make the best decisions, though. There's always this saying, the best customer is the most informed customer. So the best citizen is the most informed citizen, though. And I think any effort to curb the right to information, like for example, the present suggestion by the ministry to license online news portals and so on, is something that we should oppose, because it violates the fundamental rights of people, though. Right, information is a fundamental right, or access to information is a fundamental right, though.
Okay, do you believe in separation of powers between government, parliament, and judiciary?
Yeah, that's fundamental. The separation of powers between the judiciary, the state, the executive, and parliament has to be in balance, though. The check and balance has to exist. But in Malaysia, over the last so many years, we have lost that balance, where the parliament as well as the judiciary has become an extension of the state, and in particular extension of UMNO. And that is why today we are having so much of problems, and increasingly this notion that this government is illegitimate government, though. And courts have become so delegitimated at this point in time. And I think that's the direction the country has to go, where there's a clear separation of powers between the state, the executive, the judicial system, as well as parliament, lawmakers.
Your views on EC's comment on election was actually free and fair. EC actually mentioned, one of them actually mentioned that if the elections were not free and fair, big candidates like Gelan Partai candidate as well as Namshid wouldn't have lost. So your comment on that?
I think the deputy commissioner of SPR lives in a la-la land, though, quite oblivious of what is happening on the ground, and that's quite understandable, because he behaves like a government servant, as a or UMNO appointee, as opposed to be an independent commissioner, though. Now, the function of SPR is to organize free and fair elections. That's the mandate it has got. And I can tell you that the electoral roll that we have is not clean. Now, why do I say that, though? Now, I took up a case to the courts where a parent from Klang received a note from the Prime Minister to his son, saying, Selamat Hari Malaysia and so on and so forth. At the back of the note, it said that your voting area is this place though. Now the son lives in the UK, has been there for the last 15 years, and has never registered to vote. Has never registered to vote, and neither has he given consent to anybody to make him a voter. But he's a voter in Klang. He's a voter in Klang. Now, how is this possible? Now, when the father made the police report, and the police have not come up, has not responded to him yet, and the police report was made early this year, January though. Again, we're looking at May. No response to his report. And he wrote a letter to SPR, Putrajaya, who forwarded his email to Selangor SPR. Now, Selangor SPR wrote back to the father saying that your son was registered by a guy called Hisyamuddin bin something. No, Hisyamuddin, no, neither both of them. Hisyamuddin bin, okay, I'll get the name for you though. Hisyamuddin bin something, right? Now, he is actually penolong pendaftar UMNO. Okay, after UMNO. So I brought the father to see him, to see the SPR Selangor, and I asked our lawyers, the father of this particular person and the SPR director for Selangor. I asked him, how many guys is this Hisyamuddin guy register? I asked him, is it 1, is it 5, is it 50, or is it 100 or 1,000? He said many. He said banyak. Okay, so clearly people are being registered without their knowledge. People are registered without their knowledge, without their consent. Now, if you thought that this is only one case of Dinesh Sivakumar, there are so many people who I can tell you, I can produce information, who have been registered without their knowledge, without their consent. Now, so therefore to say that this is a free and fair elections will be obnoxious though. And also to suggest that, we will use indelible ink. And this indelible ink will not go off, for 4 or 5 days or whatever the case may be. But clearly we have evidence saying that it's come out within the first half an hour, which actually allows for double voting. Allows for double voting.
And also his comments on the inedible ink is basically, it does not determine the victory of an election. The ink does not determine the victory of an election.
No, but the thing is, it allows for double voting. And when there's a double voting, it influences the voting, especially in areas where the margin of victory is very small. Is very small.
Your comments on the Karunanidhi's recent death in custody, very recent.
I think if this was Europe, or this was Japan, or even Korea, the minister would have resigned by now. Because the minister will take responsibility for what had happened in the police station. But here, it goes as if it's another normal day. And that is because all those people who are dying in custody in the last so many weeks, or the last so many days, are Indians though. Indians don't count in this country though. If there were 3 Malays who had died in 1 week, and they were rich Malays, if they're poor Malays, they will discount it out though. If they were rich Malays who are dying, something major would have happened by now. Now this tells you the perception of UMNO towards Indians. It's okay, it's only an Indian life though, it's okay, it can be dispensed off. It doesn't matter. But I think fundamental is that the role of police is to protect lives. But unfortunately, this is not the case though, where you actually beat somebody to death. I mean, why would you staple somebody though? I mean, why? What are you thinking when you do those things, And the fact that, these guys are dragging their feet in actually and even to discipline the police officer actually shows culpable. That means they are also culpable to this murder. By keeping quiet, we citizens of this country are also culpable. I mean, if you have a case against somebody, bring him to court or bring her to court. Charge them in court though. But do not kill them while in custody. Now again, this reinforces the notion that our institutions do not have legitimacy. So the delegitimacy question again comes into play. So when the government says, let's stop politicking and let's move forward, what they really have to do is to create a climate of legitimacy that we can believe them. But actually nobody believes them.
Okay, how about the water issues in Klang? How are we going to combat?
No, we don't have much of a problem like we have in Subang Jaya and so on. So Klang is pretty much under control. You have this one-offs, water disconnections and so on, but it's not a serious problem as you had in Wangsa Maju, in Subang Jaya and so on and so forth.
How about flash floods and...
That is an issue though. Flash floods is an issue. What we have done is the Selangor government has given 5 million for upgrading of drainage and also ponds, water ponds. So that work is already started. So we should be looking at less floods though. But I must also caution that our government of Malaysia and even the government of Selangor has to rethink and relook at the notion of floods though. Our drains are not equipped. Our drains and our drainage system is not equipped to deal with the volume of rain that is coming down though. For example, if you go to some areas in Klang, these were houses that were built in 1960s and 70s. The drains are so small though, that with the volume of rain that is coming now, it overflows very fast. And that's because of climate change. Climate change, as you know, has got this tendency or the propensity to bring down so much of rain in a short period of time though. And it brings down and it brings more rain than one can actually, any drainage system can accommodate. So, for example, in the Philippines, 2 years ago, even last year, when they had these massive floods, the rain that came down in 8 hours was equivalent to the rain for one whole year. So, this is what you're going to see in Malaysia as well. And therefore, there's a need to rethink about drainage, about housing in general, though, and the kinds of drains and the kind of systems, drainage systems that we have in Malaysia. Though. So this problem is just not a Klang problem, but a problem that you will have throughout Malaysia. Though.
Any new rising issues for Klang that you would like to highlight?
I think the issue will be transportation. Though. As I said, crime, transportation, and floods. These are 3 issues, and I think these 3 issues are issues that are ongoing, and there's need to be incremental changes at all levels. Though I don't think it's going to be solved in one day or in 1 year, but this is really a work in progress. But this progress can only take place when you have the federal government, state government, as well as the people themselves and the local councils here working together to solve these problems now. And therefore it requires budgetary allocation, it requires attitude changes though. I mean, till today, people who, whether they are living in low-cost homes or whether they are living in bungalow houses, throw their rubbish in the drain. This has to stop. I mean, what do you need to tell people though? That this has to stop. This is common sense though. That if you throw rubbish into your drain, it's going to clog, it's going to flood though. So when people do not take responsibility for their own environment, then they have to take some responsibility for the floods.
What would you like to tell your voters, your Klang voters?
What do I like to tell them? I think we are living in exciting times, an exciting moment for Malaysia, where I think the people have clearly said that they would like a new government in Putrajaya, and they voted for our government in Putrajaya, I'm sure. And I think this is the time that we have to work as a community to push for change, and to be vigilant though. And the most important thing that I would like to ask for people of Klang at this very moment is actually to be vigilant about crime, to be vigilant about rubbish, especially rubbish, and also to start registering their children and their families as new voters. This is the call that I would like to make.